Have you ever stepped into a room and before uttering a single word, noticed the atmosphere shift around you? Conversations falter, people fidget. There's an unspoken tension. You didn't say anything offensive. You didn't even open your mouth. But something changed. And here's the raw truth most won't say aloud. When your presence carries true power, it doesn't just affect people, it unsettles them. Not because you're wrong or rude or broken, but because your presence stirs up everything they've tried to bury inside themselves. The discomfort isn't about you, it's about what you awaken in them. This isn't spiritual fluff. It's deeply rooted in psychology. Carl Jung, one of the pioneers of modern psychological thought, coined the term the shadow to describe the aspects of ourselves that we suppress, the parts we pretend don't exist. Shame, fear, jealousy, resentment. These elements live in the dark corners of our psyche. And when someone walks into the room radiating authenticity, alignment, and presence, those hidden shadows stir. People begin to act strange, even if you're not doing anything remotely threatening. They become defensive, overly cheerful in a fake way, or even passive-aggressive. You might find yourself wondering what you did wrong, but in reality, it's not you they're reacting to. It's what's happening inside of them because of you. If you've ever been called too much, too serious, or too intense, chances are you're carrying a field of energy that makes others face themselves. And that's not something everyone is prepared for. If you don't understand what's happening, you might spend your whole life shrinking, making yourself smaller, trying to ease the discomfort you seem to cause. You might over-explain yourself, apologize for just existing, and feel utterly exhausted trying to keep the peace. But once you begin to master your energetic presence, once you learn to create boundaries that don't need to be spoken, you stop absorbing other people's mess as if it's your responsibility to clean it up. But before we go any deeper into protecting your energy or how to stop attracting emotional chaos, we need to answer one crucial question. What do we actually mean by energy? Because if that's not clear, it's easy to dismiss all of this as abstract or mystical. And this isn't about woo-woo vibes or crystal rituals. This is grounded in real science and psychology. When we talk about energy here, we're talking about your inner field, what Jung referred to as psychic energy. Your emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and unconscious drives, they all generate a signal, a frequency, that you emit all the time. You're not just a body walking around. You're a field of information interacting with everything around you. And that field communicates way before your voice ever does. Jung believed every human is constantly projecting an energetic field that is picked up and responded to by others. This is why some people seem to light up a room and others create an invisible fog. You're not just speaking to someone's ears, you're interfacing with their emotional patterns, their past wounds, their insecurities, most of it without a single word being exchanged. Now fast forward to modern science. What does quantum physics say? The most basic idea is this: everything is energy. All matter, including our bodies, is energy vibrating at different frequencies. Thoughts are energy, emotions, energy too. And just like a vibrating tuning fork can change the tone of another fork nearby, your internal frequency impacts everyone in your proximity. Here's a simple, everyday example. You've walked into a room after two people just finished arguing. They're silent now, smiling even, but the air feels charged, like static crawling over your skin. That's not your imagination. It's energetic residue. Your nervous system picks it up immediately, even without any visual or auditory cues. And in the same way, have you ever met someone and felt your entire system relax? Like your whole being just sighed with relief? That's energy too, specifically energetic coherence. In neuroscience, we know this happens through mirror neurons. These are specialized brain cells that allow us to feel what others are feeling. They're the basis of empathy. But here's the powerful part. This all happens unconsciously. You don't need to say anything for someone to feel your energy. That means when someone is standing in their truth, self-aware and clear, their field emits a frequency that either calms or confronts. So when you walk into a space with a regulated nervous system, grounded presence, and unshakable inner alignment, you're not just noticed, you're felt. Your energy ripples through the room, triggering anything that doesn't match it. This is why people who haven't done the inner work react strangely around you. Their system doesn't know how to respond to yours. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Now flip that idea. When someone else hasn't dealt with their unconscious, and you enter with your conscious self intact, you become a mirror. And people don't always like what mirrors show them. If you've ever walked into a room and noticed people suddenly shift their tone, posture, or behavior for no logical reason, this is it. You haven't said or done anything, yet somehow they're nervous, irritated, or performative. This is because their energy is reacting to yours. You're clear, they're not. And that difference creates discomfort. People who live behind emotional walls or personas have learned to survive through masks. They act okay when they're not. They project confidence when they're filled with doubt. And then you walk in, authentic, transparent, unfiltered. Even if you're quiet, your presence alone holds up a mirror to their performance. They feel exposed without knowing why. Jung called this projection. When a person can't face their own pain, they project it outward. So when your energy activates their unhealed wounds, they won't say, "Wow, I feel triggered by my unresolved issues." No, but they'll say things like, "You're too intense," or "You make things weird." Not because you did anything wrong, but because their nervous system is misfiring in response to your signal. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine someone has lived in a cave for years. Darkness is all they've ever known. Then one day, you walk in and flip on the light. What do? They squint, recoil, maybe even yell, "Turn it off!" Not because light is dangerous, but because darkness had become their comfort zone. That's what your energy does. It shines where others have refused to look. Even the body reacts. Neuroscience shows that people exposed to coherence, calm, authentic, regulated presence can experience physiological discomfort if they're not used to it. Their heart rate may spike, cortisol levels rise. They unconsciously fidget, over-explain, laugh nervously. Their entire system is trying to recalibrate to a frequency it doesn't recognize. But here's the kicker. It's not about you. You're not being too much. You're not disrupting the room. You're simply showing up in alignment. And that's enough to shake loose the fragments in other people. Let's take this deeper. One common scenario you've probably experienced. A stranger treats you coldly, passively, or even rudely, out of nowhere. You ask a simple question and suddenly the energy shifts. The cashier throws attitude. The colleague snaps back. The acquaintance acts like you've just insulted them. You didn't. What happened is they felt your groundedness, your self-possession, and it made their own insecurity feel loud. This is what happens when your presence radiates inner strength. It doesn't look like force or domination. It's calm, clear, unwavering. But to someone whose identity depends on control or validation, that feels threatening because you've shown up with nothing to prove, and that challenges their entire framework. In psychology, this is known as ego threat. When someone's self-image is challenged, even unconsciously, they respond with defense mechanisms, sarcasm, belittling, dismissiveness. It's not about your words. It's about how your presence destabilizes their need for superiority. You might think, why do people compete with me when I'm just being myself? That's the answer. Because your presence threatens the illusion they've built. You don't have to do anything flashy. You just have to be. And that's rare. Rarer than you realize. So what do? They poke. They produce. They test you. They want you to react, to flinch, to match their frequency. Don't. That's the trap. They're looking for a way to pull you down so they can feel level again. But your power lies in not engaging. You don't need to match their chaos. Stay anchored. Respond with silence, not submission. Because when someone tries to provoke a reaction, they're not challenging your truth. They're wrestling with their own discomfort. And if you let their chaos into your space, it becomes yours. Now here's something you might have noticed throughout your life. People either feel instantly connected to you, or they can't stand being around you. There's rarely a middle ground. And that polarization isn't a sign something is wrong with you. It's a sign you're radiating with such authenticity that people have no choice but to either lean in or back off. You may have strangers confide in you within minutes, or people disappear after one meaningful conversation. This is all about energetic resonance. When someone is aligned with truth, they feel safe around you. When they're not, your presence feels like a confrontation they didn't sign up for. So let's expand on that point. Your presence can feel like a spiritual X-ray machine to some people. Without saying a word, you make them feel seen, deeply seen. Not just the curated version of themselves they've polished for the outside world, but the messy, unprocessed, neglected parts too. And that's not something everyone is ready for. There's something almost magnetic about it. Certain people are drawn in as if they've finally found someone who doesn't play by the script. Others seem instantly on edge, like you walked in and rearranged their sense of control. And you're not even trying. This is the dual impact of having a powerful, unfiltered energy field. It's not loud. It's not boastful. It's just true. And truth always demands one thing: alignment. People who are ready to align with themselves will feel a pull toward you. Your energy will feel like home, like an invitation to stop pretending, like a breath of fresh air in a world full of noise. But people who are still clinging to the safety of their performance, to the identity they constructed for survival, they'll either resist, retreat, or reject you outright. You've seen it happen. One moment someone is friendly, smiling, even engaged. The next, something shifts. They pull back. They stop texting. They avoid your gaze. Maybe you said something honest, or maybe you said nothing at all. That's not rejection. That's resonance, or rather, the lack of it. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk beside you. Your energy is like a tuning fork. It either harmonizes or it doesn't. And no amount of self-editing can change that. This is something you must understand at a cellular level. When someone distances themselves from you without reason, they're not pulling away from your worth. They're avoiding what your presence reflects back to them. It's not personal, it's vibrational. Think of it like two radio stations. If you're broadcasting on a frequency of truth, groundedness and integrity, and they're still stuck on static, no amount of volume will create a match. That's not failure. That's natural sorting. And the inverse is just as profound. Ever notice how some people open up to you with shocking speed? Total strangers tell you their trauma, their secrets, the things they've never dared speak aloud. You might be at a party or sitting next to someone on a train, and suddenly they're pouring out a life story like you're their personal confessor. That's not coincidence. That's your field. You emit a frequency that signals, it's safe to be real here. And people who've been starving for that kind of space, real, non-judgmental presence, they find you and breathe for the first time in years. But this brings us to a tricky challenge. When your energy is this powerful, you don't just attract the open-hearted, You also draw in the desperate, the depleted, the chaotic, the unhealed, because your presence feels like relief. And for some, that relief becomes a craving. Here's where you need to be cautious. Not everyone who gravitates toward your light is doing so with respect. Some are looking for shelter, and others are looking for supply. They want to siphon your peace, your clarity, your attention, without giving anything back. And if you're not aware, you'll confuse their need for love. You'll open the door wide. You'll offer space, empathy, support. But over time, you'll feel it, the drain, the slow leak of your energy, the heaviness that doesn't match your own emotion. There's a reason people like you often feel exhausted after conversations that seemed harmless. It's not about what was said. It's about what was transmitted. Energetic exchange is always happening, and when someone hasn't learned to manage their own inner chaos, they unconsciously hand it to you, especially if you've been conditioned to be the strong one, the caretaker, the healer in your social circle. That dynamic is seductive because it feels purposeful. You tell yourself you're helping, you're supporting, but over time, if you're not discerning, you end up carrying weights that were never yours. This isn't compassion, it's entanglement, and it will burn you out silently. You're not a rehab center, you're not an emotional landfill, you're not here to be everyone's place to dump what they refuse to clean up. Yes, you have empathy. Yes, you feel deeply, but that doesn't make you responsible for everyone who finds your energy soothing. Read that again. The most powerful people are not those who say yes to every soul in distress. They are the ones who recognize when someone's chaos is not their assignment. Let's be honest. Some people don't want healing. They want comfort. They don't want to face their own shadows. They want to distract themselves by standing in your light. And if you let them, they will attach. Not in love, in dependency. This is how energy vampires are born. Not out of malice, but out of unconscious need. They cling, they vent, they linger in your orbit. And slowly you start to feel foggy, anxious, like you're losing touch with yourself. That's the cost of emotional entanglement. That's what happens when you confuse being available with being responsible. Let me make this plain. The fact that someone feels better around you does not automatically mean they are healthy for you. Sometimes the biggest threat to your energy isn't hatred, it's dependency masked as admiration. You always know what to say. I don't know what I'd do without you. You just get me. Those words feel good until you realize you're being cast as the anchor in someone else's storm, and you never agreed to the role. So here's what you need to remember. Access to your energy is a privilege. It is not an open bar. It's earned through reciprocity, respect, and mutual awareness. You don't have to close yourself off. You just have to stop leaving the door unlocked for anyone who knocks. Let's pivot here to something more subtle, but deeply affirming. When your energy is truly aligned, it doesn't just affect people. It resonates with the natural world. Animals, children, even the environment itself responds to authentic, clear energy. Think about this. How many times has a dog or a child gravitated toward you unprompted? You walk past and the animal stops and stares, or comes right over, tail wagging, without fear. Or you visit someone's home and their cat, which apparently hates everyone, curls up on your lap without hesitation. That's not chance. That's energy recognition. Children and animals don't filter through social scripts. They don't care about your appearance, your resume, your voice. They feel vibration. And when your frequency is grounded, open, and authentic, they recognize it instantly. To them it feels safe. It feels right. And nature itself responds in kind. Plants flourish in homes where the energy is clean. They respond to the vibration of the space just like humans do. There's even research showing how plants can detect emotional intent. Whether you believe in the specifics of those studies or not, the principle stands. Life responds to life. Truth resonates through everything, and when you carry a high-integrity field, the living world reflects that back to you. Now flip the coin. Just as children, animals, and nature lean into high-frequency energy, people steeped in inauthenticity pull away from it. If you've ever felt physically uncomfortable in fake environments, or felt your skin crawl when someone was being overly nice in a way that felt off, it's because your system is allergic to inauthenticity. And inauthenticity is equally allergic to you. You don't even have to speak. Just showing up fully embodied, aligned, not needing to impress, rattles people who survive on masks. They don't know why, but something about your presence makes them uneasy, defensive, competitive. They might laugh too hard at nothing, over-explain themselves, or suddenly treat you with passive condescension. That's not about you. That's what happens when illusion meets truth. It's the same as shining a flashlight in a room full of smoke. The people who are clear will be relieved. The ones hiding something will cough and complain, not because light is bad, but because they built their identity in the dark. You've probably felt this most intensely in group settings. Everyone's chatting politely, smiling, discussing surface topics. Then you speak just one real sentence, one truth, and everything shifts. People go quiet. Some look at their phones. One person tries to change the subject. Another stares at you like you've broken some unspoken rule. And you have. You broke the illusion. You interrupted the game. And realness always creates discomfort in rooms that rely on performance. But that discomfort isn't your burden. It's your brilliance. When you speak from alignment, when your presence is clear, it acts like a tuning fork, forcing others to either rise or recoil. There is no middle ground. And you must let that be okay. Because the more grounded you become in your truth, the less tolerance you will have for anything fake. Shallow conversations will feel like noise. Forced social norms will feel like wearing someone else's skin. And that's not you being antisocial. That's your soul demanding resonance. It's not about judging people. It's about protecting your frequency. It's about preserving your field so that when the right connections show up, the ones that see you, not just what they can extract from you, you're whole enough to recognize them. Let this sink in. The people who are repelled by your truth were never your people. They were characters in a script you've outgrown. You're not here to perform. You're here to activate, to shift, to be a catalyst for truth, not by force but by presence. So stop apologizing for how you make people feel. You're not intense, you're not too much, you're not overthinking, you're just tuned in. And tuning in will always turn off the ones still asleep. Let's take this further, because here's something very few people are talking about. When your energy is clear, real, and self-contained, it doesn't just draw attention, it draws contrast. That means the moment you show up fully in your truth, you expose the gap between who people pretend to be and who they actually are. And whether they know it or not, their nervous system reacts instantly. But here's the twist. That reaction isn't always visible. Sometimes it comes through silence, through distancing, through a shift so subtle you wouldn't catch it unless you were paying attention. A reply takes longer. Eye contact drops. Invitations stop. They're not mad. They're uncomfortable. And they might not even realize why. It's because your energy forces a reckoning. You didn't challenge them directly. You didn't criticize their lifestyle. You didn't even bring up anything personal. But your presence triggered an internal alarm, a reminder of what they've been avoiding. And when that happens, people usually do one of two things: lean into the discomfort and grow, or retreat back into their illusion and blame you for what they felt. And if you don't understand this dynamic, you'll spend your life trying to decode their reactions. You'll twist yourself up inside asking, did I say something wrong? Or did I do too much? When the truth is, your only mistake was showing up in alignment. This is why strong, energetically aware people are often mislabeled. You're not intimidating. You're not arrogant. You're not antisocial. You're just not playing along with the masks. And the moment you choose authenticity over approval, you start to lose people who only knew how to relate to your previous version, the one that bent, shrunk, and filtered itself to be palatable. But let me be blunt. You don't need to be palatable. You don't need to be easy to digest. You need to be whole, and wholeness will always be disruptive in a world addicted to fragments. This brings us to something more nuanced, but just as powerful: how your energy draws in two very distinct types of people. On one side, you attract empaths, sensitive, intuitive souls who've done their inner work or are actively doing it. People who can sit with silence, who don't need to fill space with performance, who see through facades and meet you where you really live. Being around them feels like a deep breath, like safety without words. And when your field interacts with theirs, it's harmony. It's a shared frequency. These people won't drain you. They'll reflect you. They won't project onto you. They'll resonate with you. But the other type of person, the ones who haven't done the work, the ones who operate from survival, ego, chaos, they sense your energy not as a mirror, but as a resource, a well they can draw from, and the more unaware they are, the more they believe they're entitled to that well. They might not even realize what they're doing, but you'll feel it. Every conversation leaves you a little more tired. You offer advice once, and they keep coming back for more. You hold space for their pain, and they never ask about yours. You forgive the little jabs, the subtle disrespect, the emotional dumping, and they keep pushing because your silence tells them it's allowed. But here's the truth that will free you. Someone leaning on you emotionally does not mean they're in alignment with you. Closeness doesn't always mean compatibility. And just because you understand their pain doesn't mean it's your job to carry it. Let me say that again, because it's vital. You are not obligated to carry what others refuse to process. You are allowed to step back, to say no, to protect your peace, even if someone else interprets it as abandonment. That interpretation is not yours to fix. It's theirs to unravel. When your energy becomes a source of comfort for people who are disconnected from themselves, you must be vigilant. Because without boundaries, they will try to merge with you, energetically, emotionally, even physically, until you can no longer hear your own thoughts without theirs bleeding in. And here's where it gets even more complicated. You might feel guilty. You might confuse your compassion for responsibility. You might even believe that setting a boundary is selfish. But that's the conditioning talking. That's the part of you that learned to survive by being useful, by being needed, by being the one who could carry more than your share. You don't need to be useful to be worthy. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to be spiritual. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's the act of saying, I am not here to be consumed. I am here to be present, and only those who honor that presence are allowed access to it. If someone walks into your life carrying a storm, that doesn't mean it's your role to become their shelter. Sometimes your job is simply to stay grounded, to show them what calm looks like, and let them decide whether they're ready to match it. And for those who keep storming in, uninvited, demanding space in your mind and emotions, you are allowed to close the door. You are allowed to stop explaining. You are allowed to choose yourself without apology. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start discerning. Not every cry for help is a call you were meant to answer, and not every intense connection is a soul bond. Some are karmic lessons disguised as spiritual romance. Some are unresolved wounds dressing up as destiny. So how do you know the difference? Ask yourself this. After interacting with this person, do I feel more like myself or less? Do I feel expanded or drained? Seen or used? Those answers will tell you everything. And let's not forget, your energy doesn't just affect humans, it shapes your environment. It impacts the way animals respond to you, the way children gravitate toward you, the way plants seem to thrive in your presence. These aren't coincidences, they're feedback, they're evidence that your field is resonating at a frequency that invites life, not chaos. But here's the flip side. When your energy is that clean, it also becomes a spotlight. And that spotlight doesn't just attract love, it reveals distortion. You'll notice that some people become agitated around you without provocation. Others may suddenly distance themselves, not because of something you said, but because they can't maintain their mask in your presence. You've become a mirror they didn't ask for. And not everyone wants to see clearly. Some prefer the blur, the projection, the safety of the story they've been telling themselves. So they'll mislabel you, call you intimidating, say you're judgmental, cold, aloof. But what they're really saying is, your truth makes me uncomfortable, and you don't need to change for that. Not everyone is ready for truth. Not everyone is ready to see themselves. And that's not your burden. It's their path. Your only responsibility is to remain in alignment with your own field, to continue the work of refinement, not performance, to release the need to convince, to explain, to justify your clarity, because your clarity is the gift. It is the signal. It is the thing that will draw the right people, opportunities, and moments into your life, not because you chase them, but because you're finally resonating with what's meant for you. You're not here to save anyone. You're not here to dim your light just so others don't feel exposed. You're here to remember who you are, to live in alignment with that remembrance, and to allow your presence to do what it naturally does: illuminate, disrupt, heal, awaken. That's why you've always felt different. That's why you've never quite fit into environments where pretending is the norm. You were built to break that norm. Not with violence, not with force, but by simply being real in a world that runs on performance. So stop second-guessing your power. Stop filtering your intuition. Stop carrying guilt for the way others experience your presence. If your energy disrupts their denial, that's not harm, that's a gift, even if they can't see it yet. And here's the truth no one tells you. Most people don't fear your intensity, they fear their inability to meet it. Your depth isn't scary, it's just rare. And when something is rare, people either treasure it or they try to destroy it because they don't understand it. But you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be felt by the right ones. And they'll find you, not because you chase, but because you radiate. So from this point forward, let your presence speak. Let your boundaries protect. Let your energy choose for you. You're not just walking through life anymore. You're shaping it, just by being who you really are. Let's get into something you absolutely need if you're going to walk through this world with powerful energy. Protection. Real protection. Not walls. Not shutdowns. Not pretending you don't care when you do. I mean something much more intentional. Energetic sovereignty. The kind of protection that allows you to stay open, aware, and present without being taken under by everyone else's emotions, agendas, projections, or pain. Because let's tell the truth. If you don't learn how to protect your energy, it will get used. Not by villains, not by some evil force, but by ordinary people, unconscious people. good people even, who never learned how to carry themselves emotionally. And before you know it, their chaos becomes your weight. Their confusion becomes your fog. And you can't even remember when you stopped feeling like yourself. So let's get real about what happens when you walk through life unprotected. You don't just feel tired, you feel drained in a way that no amount of rest seems to cure. You lose touch with your own voice. You say yes when you mean no. You smile when you're carrying heartbreak. You try to be the grounding cord for everyone around you until you're so disconnected from your own center, you don't even know how to get back home. Your clarity turns into anxiety. Your intuition becomes overthinking. Your compassion morphs into resentment. And slowly, you start mistaking survival for peace. But here's the good news. None of that is permanent. You can come back to yourself. And it starts with building real, invisible, powerful, energetic boundaries. Not the kind that isolate you. Not the kind that make you cold. The kind that filter. Think of it like this. Your energy is sacred space, like a temple. And you wouldn't let just anyone walk into a temple, throw garbage on the floor, cry on the altar, and then walk out like nothing happened, right? But you let that happen energetically, all the time. So let's shift that. The first step, understanding that you are responsible for your energetic field. Not other people's behavior, not their reactions, not their projections, just your response, your choices, your clarity. That's your power, and real power isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't dominate. It simply exists with certainty. It's quiet, it's unshakable. And it begins with presence. Start here. Before you go into any interaction, pause, just for a few seconds. You don't need a full ceremony. You don't need to light candles or sage the room. Just check in, drop into your body, feel your feet, breathe slowly, and say to yourself mentally or out loud, I am grounded. I choose what enters my space. I carry only what's mine. You'd be amazed how this simple intention resets your field. It gives your nervous system a job, to observe instead of absorb. That one move alone puts you back in control, because here's the truth. Most of the chaos you feel isn't even yours. Most of the anxiety, the pressure, the sudden mood shifts, you picked that up. You walked through someone else's storm and started thinking it was your weather. And this is why you need filters, not walls. Walls block everything: love, connection, insight. But filters are smart. Filters let the truth through and keep the distortion out. So here's an exercise you can do anywhere. Picture a thin layer of light around you, not a wall, a filter, mesh-like. It allows in truth, clarity, peace, alignment. But anything that's rooted in control, guilt, manipulation, or unresolved fear, it hits the mesh and dissolves. The more you use this visualization, the more your subconscious learns how to hold that boundary automatically. Your energy field is intelligent. It listens to your intentions. Now let's talk about the most misunderstood form of power: saying no without guilt. If you're a deeply empathic person, chances are you've been trained to over-explain. You feel responsible for how others feel. You soften your no until it becomes a maybe. You apologize for needing space, and every time you do, your energy takes the hit. So let me offer you this. No is a complete sentence. You don't need to justify your boundaries to people who benefit from you not having any. You're allowed to say, I won't be available for that. That's it. No excuses, no backstory. And when someone tries to guilt you for protecting your peace, that's not feedback, that's exposure. You just revealed their relationship with control. People who love you will respect your boundaries. People who are using you will resist. That's the difference. Another thing you've got to master is emotional access. Just because someone is kind doesn't mean they've earned access to your inner world. Just because someone is struggling doesn't mean you owe them your time. Emotional access is sacred. Not everyone gets a seat at that table. So check in with yourself. Ask, do I feel restored or drained after spending time with this person? If the answer is drained, it's time to adjust the boundary. It doesn't mean you cut them off with hostility. It means you move them out of your sacred circle and into a different orbit. That's not cold. That's self-honoring. You're not everyone's emotional safe house. You're not here to catch all the pieces people refuse to pick up for themselves. You're here to be whole. And wholeness requires discernment. And discernment is not judgment. It's clarity. It's the ability to recognize who adds to your life and who just adds noise. It's seeing where your energy is valued and where it's being harvested. Let me give you a simple framework. Protect your peace like it's your paycheck. Because it is. Your energy is your real currency. It's how you show up. It's how you create. It's how you love. And when you give it away without intention, you end up bankrupt in ways no one can see. So build in daily resets. Just like you charge your phone, you've got to clear your field. Here's a quick method that works. Step 1. Breathe with purpose. Before you touch your phone in the morning or after a heavy interaction, pause and take a deep breath. In through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Out through the mouth for 6. As you exhale, say in your mind, I release what isn't mine. This tells your nervous system to stop holding energy it didn't create. Step 2. Cut energetic cords. This isn't some fantasy ritual. It's imagery for your subconscious. Imagine any cords attached to your body. People, conversations, situations, and mentally slice them clean. Say, I return what's not mine. I call my energy back to me. Do this often, especially after draining environments. Step 3. Anchor. End with a grounding statement. I am here, I am whole, I choose my energy. It's simple but powerful. When your energy is scattered, this pulls you back to presence. You don't need a big routine. You need consistency. A few mindful moments each day to come back to yourself. And when you do that, your field strengthens. You stop absorbing. You start transmitting. Because make no mistake, you are not meant to be a sponge. You are meant to be a lighthouse. A sponge soaks up everything, clean or dirty. A lighthouse holds position, steady in the storm, lighting the path for others, but never getting pulled under. So the next time you walk into a chaotic room and feel your stomach twist, your mind scatter, your chest tighten, pause. Don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what am I picking up that doesn't belong to me? Because that's the question that brings you back. You're not just sensitive, you're sovereign. And that means learning to stay anchored in your own energy field even while surrounded by emotional turbulence. So here's what you practice moving forward. Observe, don't absorb. Feel, don't fix. Notice, but don't carry. Witness, but don't entangle. Your presence is already powerful. Now your job is to make it protected. Because the truth is, you were never meant to walk around with your field wide open like a sponge in a thunderstorm. That was survival mode. That was childhood conditioning. That was your way of staying safe, reading danger, anticipating needs before they were spoken. But you're not in survival anymore. You're in sovereignty now. And sovereignty feels different. It feels quiet, clear, clean. You'll know you're living in it when you walk away from a conversation, still feeling like yourself. When you make decisions without needing validation. When you can feel someone else's pain without making it your assignment. This is the power you've been looking for. And it's been inside you the whole time, waiting for you to remember. Let's bring this full circle. You're not walking through life with this kind of energy by accident. You weren't made like everyone else for a reason. You weren't designed to blend in, to follow the script, or to shrink yourself into a version that makes other people feel okay about never evolving. Your intensity, your presence, your awareness, that was never a mistake. It was the assignment. Because here's the deeper truth. The world isn't suffering from a lack of kindness or talent or even intelligence. What we're really starving for is presence, for truth. For people who've done the work, faced their shadows, integrated their pain, and learned to carry themselves with integrity in a world that rewards masks. And whether you asked for it or not, whether you've embraced it or still wrestle with it, you are one of those people. But here's the catch. If you don't understand what you're carrying, it can feel like a curse. You'll feel everything. You'll see through everything. And you'll wonder why it all seems heavier for you than it does for everyone else. Here's why. Because you weren't just given this level of energy to survive the world. You were given it to shift it, to activate it, to bring light into rooms that haven't seen clarity in years. But that starts by letting it wake you up first. See, people with powerful energy almost always carry pain. That's not punishment. That's preparation. You needed to understand depth before you could carry it for others. You had to walk through fire so you could become fire. That hyper-awareness you developed as a child, that wasn't a flaw. That was you learning how to read energy before you even had language to describe it. You learned how to walk on emotional eggshells, how to sense what wasn't being said, how to notice tension in a room before it ever broke the surface. That sensitivity was survival, but now it's evolved into something more. It's your gift. It's your compass. It's how you navigate a noisy, chaotic world without losing yourself to it. And if people don't understand that, if they call you too much, too deep, too intense, let them. You didn't come here to make people comfortable. You came here to be real. And sometimes realness is loud. Sometimes it breaks patterns. Sometimes it triggers people so hard they mistake their own reflection for an attack. But that's not your responsibility. That's their awakening. Carl Jung described this exact journey as individuation, becoming your full, authentic self by integrating everything unconscious, your wounds, your fears, your shadow, your power. And once you do that, you don't just carry energy, you become energy, alive, whole, unshakable. You stop needing to defend your light. You stop waiting for permission to speak your truth. You stop looking around the room hoping someone will understand you, because you finally understand yourself. And that's when it all starts to shift, and your presence alone starts to do the work for you. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain why you feel what you feel. You simply are. And people will feel that. Some will be drawn in. Some will run away. Some will project onto you, love you, resist you, misunderstand you. Let them. Their reactions are not a reflection of your truth. They're a mirror of their own readiness. You've probably seen this your entire life. People drawn to you one moment, then backing away the next. People praising your depth, only to ghost you after one raw conversation. People magnetized by your presence, but then intimidated when they realize you won't play the small talk game. That's not inconsistency. That's exactly what happens when truth meets avoidance. People want healing until they realize it requires exposure. They want peace until they realize it means facing their noise. They want clarity until they realize it demands surrender. And you're the living embodiment of all three. That's why you've been misunderstood. Not because you're too much, but because you refuse to be less. Let's talk about your relationships for a second. Because if you carry this kind of presence, Chances are your connections have been complicated. You've either felt deeply bonded to someone within minutes, or completely alone in rooms full of people. You've had to let go of friends who couldn't meet you at your depth. You've been the emotional anchor in romantic relationships, the therapist in family dynamics, the lighthouse for people still drifting in their own fog. And if you're not careful, that role will drain you. You'll mistake it for love. You'll call it loyalty. You'll tell yourself, if I just give a little more, they'll meet me here. But they won't. Not unless they choose to. And it's not your job to drag them into the light. You're not here to rescue people from their journey. You're here to walk fully in yours. When you learn that, you stop chasing potential. You stop entertaining half-hearted connections. You stop saying yes when your gut is screaming no. You start choosing people who meet you in your energy. Not your wounds, not your fear of being alone, but your truth. And yes, that narrows the field. Yes, that means fewer friends, fewer invitations, fewer texts from people who once said they loved your vibe. But you know what you gain? And a peace, alignment, presence, and that's worth more than any circle full of noise. Let's be honest, most people aren't ready for what you carry, and that's not arrogance. That's statistics. Most people are living on autopilot. Most people are afraid of silence. Most people are addicted to distraction, performance, approval. You're tuned in. You feel the shift in someone's tone before they even realize they're lying. You sense the tension in a room before anyone else sees the signs. That's not something you explain, that's something you honor. So stop editing yourself for people still living in distortion. Stop apologizing for your intuition. Stop doubting your inner knowing just because it makes someone uncomfortable. You weren't given this energy to be passive. You weren't gifted this clarity to stay silent. You weren't built with this presence to dim it for others' comfort. You were wired for impact. And the first person you're meant to impact is yourself. Because here's what they never told you. You don't need to fix the world to be powerful. You don't need 1 million followers, a stage, or a brand. You don't need a microphone. You just need alignment. When you are aligned, your very presence becomes the work. Your frequency becomes your legacy. You walk into spaces and shift the temperature without speaking. You become a mirror people didn't know they needed, and some won't be ready to see. Let that be okay. You're not here for everyone. You're here for alignment. You're here for truth. You're here for the version of you that no longer needs validation to feel safe. That version, that's your freedom. So let's end with this challenge. If anything in this message lit something up inside you, if you felt seen, named, understood, it's because you're remembering, not learning, remembering. And that's what this journey is, a remembering of who you've always been before the world taught you to forget. So say it with conviction. Say it like a contract with your soul. I own my energy. Say it for the version of you who kept quiet to make others comfortable. Say it for the younger you who thought being sensitive was a flaw. Say it for the present you who's done the work and still shows up every day with heart and truth. You own your energy now, not because it's trendy, not because someone gave you permission, but because it's yours. And you're finally ready to walk in it fully. And if you're serious about staying in alignment, protecting your energy, and stepping into a life that reflects your truth, then let this moment be the turning point. Let this be the line in the sand. No more dimming, no more shrinking, no more explaining your light to people committed to living in the dark. You don't owe the world your silence. You owe yourself your presence. So go forward as you are, unfiltered, unapologetic, awake, and let the world rearrange itself in response to your truth. Because the right ones, they'll find you. They always do.